Yeah, long story. I used to do light shows for rock groups, including The Who. I used to make laser shows. For the first time The Who had lasers in Germany on tour, it was me. And I worked with musicians trying to bring together the music and the visuals. However, after 1 or 2 years, I found out it didn't work very well because musicians were only very, like I am now today, also very selfish, very concentrated on themselves. They wanted to make the music, and if they had visuals in behind them, it was fine. Whatever they would be, they didn't care. It just made an effect. So because of that, I decided that I would also do the music myself to get this togetherness, to bring the music and the visuals really close together.
Tell me, would you call it quits? Are you positive? Tell me, if the scheme fits. Big scare.
I had never learned to play on a keyboard. And because I had not learned to play a keyboard, I was obliged to create instruments that would compensate my lack of knowledge of playing on a keyboard. This is why I got into that. And the first one I created, I have to say it, is the laser harp. And that was made just for that. For me, it was obvious, coming from the visual world, where I would generate light and images to go with sound. Generating sound from light was quite a logical method. So my first instruments were used light very much, including the laser harp. I found a place which is close to the ocean. When I have a large project in France, I will come for a few months and work here. When I started with my first borrowed synthesizers to play and make loops, I noticed that I was so involved into the music that I didn't need to hear music anymore, little by little. So little by little, I listened less and less and less. And then I found that it had a huge advantage. It would prevent me from trying to be trendy. I didn't know what was happening. And since these more than 35 years, I very rarely listen to music. When somebody says, here, listen to this or listen to that, I will do it. But on my own, I don't. So I don't know really what is going on. And it's a great advantage. In my mind, I rely on something which is very spiritual. I want these instruments to have a sort of form of life, or not a form of life which will necessarily make my life simple. I like the idea of having to fight with the instrument to generate sounds and music. So I imagine this instrument as a yokai. A yokai is a Japanese spirit. It's generally a mischievous spirit which will resist to you, and it's also a spirit. This one is called Mikoshi Niudo, and it's sort of an evil spirit, which means it will make my life even tougher than if it was just a mischievous one. So I can do different things with it. For instance, I can play with this, which is the equivalent of a keyboard, which will generate either sounds or samples or control effects. And if I combine some of them, it will create other possibilities. And every minute, in my computer, I program it so that what I have access here will change. And this is the difficulty, because it's impossible to remember in 1 hour what will be heard at that moment. I can prepare them in a range of sounds, but I can never exactly know. So it's always a surprise. What is he going to propose me or fight against me, prevent me from doing? You see? This is how I conceive it. The second possibility I do is, these tubes come from the first instrument. The first instrument is horizontal. And when I pass my hands over it, it also generates sounds or modifies sounds. But then, when I have finished playing with the first instrument, I pull these tubes out, and they become part of the other instrument. First thing I will do is snap this in here. It's not perfectly balanced because I'm sitting. And with this, when I will hit like this, it generates a sound. But it's a tiny little gesture, and it would generate a sound which is huge, like a cathedral. So this is the first thing I do. The second thing I will do with this is take this out and come and snap it in here. And then I can rotate this. I have a second one, of course, and I can rotate this, and this will do all kinds of things depending on what, again, the machine will propose me. Will it generate notes? Will it generate sounds? Will it modify amplitudes of sounds? This yokai mikoshi nyudo is a spirit which is physically resembles to a man's. Now, of course, all these technologies are available to everybody. But what I want, how I can stand in a different position than anybody else, is my attitude towards creation, which is, I have great respect, for instance, for one man who's a painter. His name was Picasso, and he said, when I don't have blue, I paint with red. So it's not so much the color you have or the instrument you have that is important, it's what you have to say which is important. Do you have something to say or not? A lot of people could have lots of money and have these things constructed by other people. One, they would have to imagine it, and two, they would imagine, which is very logical, a musical instrument. This is not a musical instrument. This is different. This is a spirit. And if I didn't have it, I would create, I don't know, a sphere with push buttons or anything. I would create something which corresponds to me. And I cannot too much use simplicity, which is a problem, by the way. I wish I would be more simple and just complicated.